Intra-African Trade, Kenya and Nigeria Trade Agreement. In January 2012, the African Union devoted its summit to intra-African trade and establishing a continent-wide free trade area. In November of the same year, the same topic was brought up at the Africa CEO Forum in Geneva. This pattern has continued in all meetings between policymakers and heads of business as a key to sustaining growth and development in Africa. It was no different when Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan visited Kenya with a delegation of government officials and business people to encourage bilateral trade relations between the two countries. Both countries are regional hegemons, and this represents a significant progress in East and Western economic integration in Africa. South Africa's Jacob Zuma has also embarked on trips around Africa to establish more trade links on the continent. Only 11% of trade in Africa is within the continent, whereas in North America it accounts for 40%, 50% in Asia, and 60% in Europe. However, there is more intra-African trade than the numbers suggest. The informal economy in Africa is extraordinarily ingenious at establishing trade networks around the continent, but such activity is difficult to collate. Nevertheless, greater regional cooperation and trade can lead to more peace and stability on the continent. There are 14 regional economic communities operating in Africa. Less reliance on trading outside Africa could reduce vulnerability to global shocks and improve economic diversity. There would also be a significant improvement in competition, employment, and exports. The cooperation on the continent would also provide a better unified voice on the international stage, especially on issues such as climate change, foreign intervention, and development, where African states are often no more than bit-part players. Whilst these mutual gains are highly desirable, there are a lot of barriers to intra-African trade that still need to be tackled. Transporting goods around the continent has been one of the biggest obstacles to trade, so significant infrastructure projects have been pursued to further integrate the continent via rail and road networks. In East Africa, improvements to the port of Djibouti and ports in Mombasa and Dar es Salaam, combined with improvements in roads from these ports to their landlocked neighbours, shows a serious commitment to improving intra-African trade. The Trans-African Highway is another significant development in integrating African states. Every country has its quirks and barriers to entry that would make it difficult to start business in. The poor implementation of regional trade agreements and persistence of non-tariff barriers have been a particular bane to free trade in Africa. They add costs and delays to transporting goods, particularly on traders from landlocked countries. And yet, despite these difficulties, trade persists. The Nigerian delegation that went to Kenya initiated talks for future trade and business opportunities in various sectors, such as agriculture, mining, manufacturing, and finance. There are also uncorroborated claims of an oil deal that would see Kenya handing over 46 wells to Nigerian investors, which has been met with some skepticism by Kenyans. Nigeria may be able to help Kenya avoid the oil problems of the Niger Delta. The two may also share solutions to their respective domestic security problems. These issues make Nairobi and Abuja natural allies. The relationship will allow Nigeria to gain a foothold in Kenya, and vice versa. More deals like this would see countries looking for trade beyond just their regional neighbours and create more opportunities around the continent. Nigeria is the rising economic powerhouse in Africa. It's second only to South Africa in GDP and is expected to overtake them within the next 10 years. The deal with Kenya shows Abuja is embracing its role on the continent and is willing to facilitate business opportunities for the nation's business people. At the same time, given the personnel involved in the agreements, there is a view that the deals mainly benefit the wealthy elite. South Africa is reluctant to give up its #1 spot and has been making its own business deals to hold off Nigeria's rise. Despite this interesting power shift, the central narrative is that there is likely to be far more cooperation around the continent and hopefully less exploitation.